Sup, bros. It's Terry, and it's time for another drunken rant. I'm not as inebriated as I was last time I did one of these, but I wanted to do one, so I've got my whiskey here with me, and so let's go. It's space in the name again. Like 1796 bourbon, whatever year the Kentucky became the state. It's a bit more, it's not as what I would call smooth as some of the others. It's got more of a bite to it. I don't know what terms whiskey drinkers or, whiskey connoisseurs use for everything, but it's good though. I like it. But yeah, this time I'm going to be talking about hopefully more than one thing this time. I saw the first thing. Basically, the things I'm going to try and talk about are the Power Rangers movie that came out a few weeks ago. I got to see it, and then a story that I came across recently, that Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron, which if you bros might have noticed that I've changed my display name to Terry Bulgeron out of that because it's a very relevant story for today. And I tweeted asking for topics, and so far I have been suggested that I should talk about the new Ghost in the Shell movie, which I have not seen, but I know enough about the controversy surrounding it that I can say something about it. So that is going to be the lowest priority, so if I don't get to that, I might actually get to see it by the time, I might actually go and see it before the next time I do one of these. So, if any of you bros are drinking anything, fill up your cup, take a sip, here we go. First off is, I found this, story. It was called Harrison Bergeron by, or I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know, by Kurt Vonnegut, and it was written in the, I think 1969, the site said, and it perfectly describes what's going on today. The story is from the perspective of husband and wife watching TV. They're described as, the setting is described as everyone is totally equal. No one can be prettier or uglier or smarter than anyone else. The man in the story, I don't know the names, bros, so don't. So the man in the story, he is of, I guess, normal intelligence, normal or above average, but he has this thing in his ear that every once in a while will beep or play a really loud noise, like I think every 20 seconds it said, and it would disrupt his thought process. He also had to carry around weights because of his natural strength to make him weaker, or something. I don't know exactly what the weight was. Weights were for, I guess it's his speed or his gait, or maybe he was taller or something. I forget exactly what, but his wife didn't have to have one of the earpieces to disrupt her thoughts because she was of a relatively low IQ, so he was brought down to her level since he was married to her. And they're watching TV, and there's a ballet, and it talks about how some of the ballerinas were wearing really ugly masks because they were actually really, really pretty, but they weren't allowed to show their prettiness, otherwise it might make someone else feel bad. And the ones that were clearly smart also had the earpieces in, and at the same time, the husband guy, his beeped, theirs would beep too, and his wife could tell that that's what happened because at the exact same time he wins, the ballerinas on stage would also stumble and fall and everything, and the music was pretty much just someone tapping a fork on a jar, is how it was described. And they the story opens up about talking about how this couple's son was taken away from them at age 14, and suddenly he bursts into the room and he's wearing bigger things than everyone else because he outgrew the restraints and everything so quickly, and he just flexes and everything falls off. He's like 6'10" and like that, and he declares himself emperor and says that anyone who has the guts to stand up will be his wife, and this ballerina does, and he takes off her mask, and she's described as blindingly beautiful, and he takes off all the restraints from all the musicians so they can actually play music for once, and he tells them to play and gets them back into, because for their entire lives they've never been able to play music normally. It's always been with restraints and mental disruptions and stuff like that. So they get he and this dancer dance, and they jump higher and higher, and they try and kiss the ceiling, and suddenly what was her title? It was like the Department of Equality or something like that. She had a title like Dean, not Dean. Well, anyway, she bursts in and shoots them both, and tells everyone to get their restraints back on, or inhibitors, or whatever they called them, back on, or else she would shoot them too. But I was just dumbfounded just how that shows where our society is going right now. I mean, there's the entire... I mean, we're not to the point where... Actually, in certain cases we are. We're not... It's being... Right now we have the entire no body shaming type thing. You shouldn't tell people they're fat or anything because, healthy, beautiful in any size and everything. We're not to the point where we're literally, legally enforcing these things. But, like, it isn't the story, but it just hit me. Like, this is exactly where we could go. And I know to some pros out there who aren't aware of how pervasive the entire thought-controlling... I hate using that type of a word, but that's essentially what it is. When they tell you you can't talk about this group this way or whatever, and limit your free speech, that's essentially what you're doing. The entire... I mean, you see it in the entire concept between 1984, that entire... I think it was called Newspeak. I haven't actually read 1984, but I've heard so many people reference it, and I know the basic plot of it. I really should get to reading it sometime. I've read Brave New World, though, and there's a little bit of that in our society nowadays, too, but, I mean, that's the extreme version of what could happen in Harrison Bergeron. Really, honestly. But, although the entire idea of an island of thinking people would be interesting, since they don't fit into the idealized Ford society of Brave New World. At least skeptics were given that much there. I don't think, if this were to happen in real life, that the anti-SJW and skeptic community would be given that luxury. But who knows? I'm not really wanting to find out, bros. But I do think that I think that Harrison Bergeron should probably be required to reading everywhere. I think we should, suggest our friends read it. You can find it online for free to read the entire story. I found it online for free. One of my bros told me about it, and I looked it up. And, like I said, it kind of shocked me how spot on that was. And, I mean, you can really do that about any type of dystopian fiction, but, it just, spoke to me more than 1984, the idea of 1984, and, Brave New World, because I've seen articles talking about, which one is more correct, and no one ever thinks about. I've never seen anyone talk about Harrison Bergeron. Of course, it's a short story, not a novel, so it doesn't get passed around as much. Short stories usually don't. It has to be a standalone book or novel or what have you to get really mainstream attention, I guess. Aside from, folk stories and fairy tales. But yeah, if you haven't read the story, I would recommend you do, and share it with a friend, family, and see if they can draw the connections of what happened there with what's happening now. By the way, I'm outside because it's just a nice night out. But I got to see. I went to see the Power Rangers movie. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, and I was never really into Power Rangers as a calf. I watched it a little bit, but it wasn't really my thing. But I've seen so much. I just thought I would. I watched with a nostalgia critic, and Doug Walker did. I saw his review on it, and his review actually kind of made me want to watch it, just because I wanted to see how over the top Rita Repulsa was. Because I remember her being really over the top, and actually I've one of the other bros on that site, he does comic reviews. That I don't watch him as much as I did the Nostalgia Critic, but I think I watched some of his. He has this thing called History of Power Rangers, and I watched some of that, and was kind of impressed about how much more there was than what I saw. But so I went to see it, and there were certainly people surprised that I was in the room with them, but no one really bothers you, so. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. One of the things that Doug said was that they actually gave the main characters personalities rather than the bland cookie cutter personality, golly gee personalities that apparently the original Power Rangers had. And what really struck me was, Power Rangers was always one of those let's be diverse type shows. I know that. I know that much about it. And so, and I didn't go for that. I went just to see. I wanted to see someone who'd work on Transformer movies do something more than just Transformers, and I was not disappointed with that. But I was actually, despite the fact that it was a diverse cast, I was actually kind of glad how much they didn't really push that in your face. Each character had had their own arc. There were it still had pretty much the same cast makeup as the original Power Rangers. There was Asian person, black person. I think the Yellow Ranger in this was Middle Eastern. I'm not sure. Her character had the least amount of backstory. They didn't really have that much. No. Yeah, she didn't really go into her. You saw her family the least out of everything. So, but then again, that's kind of by design. That's part of her character. She doesn't like her family. She was probably the most stereotypical angsty teen character out of the entire thing. But, there's actually people out there like that, so that's to be expected. But, and I don't know their names, so I'm just going to refer to them by their colors. The Red Ranger guy, he was, they all meet in detention, which is a change, I think, because I think all of them were just already friends in the original. So, but in this one, they're established as kids with problems. They meet in detention. Each one of them has done something to get them in trouble, so they're not, perfect human beings. Which I thought was an interesting take on it. The Red Ranger guy, he tried to pull a prank in his school by taking, I don't know why bros do that, this type of thing, but they got a bull, and, well, they thought it was a cow, but it was a bull, and they brought it into the locker room, and they were caught, and he tried to jump in his pickup and drive away, and the joke in that scene was totally cringy, bros. But anyway, he crashes his truck. I think it's his dad's truck, actually, and he has to. He's given a ankle monitor, so he has to have a curfew. He has a curfew and everything, and he meets all the other prospective rangers in the scene in detention. The Blue Ranger's this black guy who's autistic, and I'm sure I haven't actually read that much progressive critique of the show, of the movie, but I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be some sort of, well, this is not really how autistic people act, even though, from what I know of autism, it's a spectrum, and so there's a wide variety of symptoms one can have, and you don't necessarily, one bro might not have the same symptoms as another, so, but, and then the Yellow Ranger broette was, revealed to be a lesbian, at one point, when she's complaining about her family, and the thing is, aside from, the thing I really liked about it was that they just accepted each other despite their quirks. The Red Ranger bro was, your typical football jock. And when he stands up for the Blue Ranger when he's being bullied, when usually it is the jock type bro who is the bully. He stops the bully from breaking the Blue Ranger's colored pencils, which he was organizing on his desk, and told him to stop making fun of him. Otherwise, if he caught him making fun of him again, then he'd get in more trouble, or they'd both be in more trouble, really, because they're both in detention. And the Blue Ranger guy, he wanted to repay Red Ranger guy by hacking his ankle bracelet, so he could go anywhere, wherever he wanted, without it going off. Apparently, that doesn't work that way in real life, but suspension of disbelief. But he takes him. The Blue Ranger asks him if he would drive him to this gold mine, because his dad used to take him there to try and find cool rocks and things like that. He had a huge rock collection. And then you get to meet everyone else there. There's this girl in the beginning who becomes the Pink Ranger, who was rejected by the popular girls for something, and you find out later what it is. And but when Blue Ranger guy explains his autism to the Red Ranger guy, he's like, he goes on and on and on. He's like, okay, that's fine. I get it. I don't. He says, I don't care. He accepts him for who he was, and he doesn't reject him because of his autism or anything. He genuinely wants to. He doesn't. Once he finds out what the blue guy wants to do and hang out in the gold mine, he kind of just wants to go off and do his own thing. But he doesn't reject him because he's autistic and weird. It's because he'd rather not hang around a gold mine where he could actually get in more trouble than, And the Black Ranger is the Asian guy who is a self-proclaimed insane person who what also just hangs out. He likes to kind of spy on everyone who just observes, because of also his family. He doesn't like staying at home because of his family situation. You find out that too. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna describe the entire plot, but basically they all have really weird quirks, and their personalities do clash, but they accept each other because of their situation. They might not agree with each other. There's actually a scene where they go and share. They essentially agree to share one secret, and that's where the Yellow Ranger girl's lesbianism comes up, and it's totally understandable why she really didn't want to talk about it. It's because her family's the stereotypical, what is stereotypically portrayed as the stereotypical white family. She's got her successful dad and mom and two brothers, and her parents are overly concerned for her, but she doesn't want to be with them because of their expectations. And so she is a delinquent. She's been, tons of school, been to school, doesn't want to make friends because she just knows she's going to move again, so why bother? The Black Ranger, the Asian guy, his main big thing is, the reason why he doesn't stay at home is because his mom is sick, and he's the only one who takes care of her, and he doesn't know when. It's a terminal illness, so he doesn't know exactly when she's actually going to die. And he's Chinese, and they speak Chinese together and play chess, so I guess that's the most stereotypical Asian thing you could. But it's not shoved in your face. It's a genuinely hard. It's when he and his mom together. It's not really forced. And speaking Chinese, it's not forced. It's him with his mom interacting in a genuine, heartfelt way, and you totally understand why he would want to stay out so much. And then the Pink Ranger, apparently she texted she knocked out a guy's tooth and texted a picture out about it, and that's why the popular girls rejected her, because he was the hot guy or whatever. And she thought that because of that, she was an absolutely horrible person. And the Red Ranger bro, he said that, how much that picture was circulated before he sent it out? Just because you've done one thing, it's not the end of the world. And he accepted her despite the fact that she did something like that. And also the Blue Ranger's mom doesn't judge the Red Ranger bro because he's white or anything. She accepts him because he's probably the first friend that the Blue Ranger guys brought home ever, because he gets bullied at school a lot. I think the reason why they're surprised that he was in detention in the first place because of how squeaky clean he is as a person, but he apparently blew up a mailbox accident. Oh no, he blew up something in the chemistry lab because he was trying to make dynamite to use in the gold mine. That's what it was. Yeah. So he was literally the least deserving of being in a detention with other people like that. And as a group, their story arc is learning to work with each other despite their differences in personality and become a team. And honestly, I was very much surprised at how they could have made this where, okay, there were one or two jokes in there about the race, like, there's this one scene where they found these coins that they used to transform into Power Rangers, and they jump down this canyon into this subterranean lake, and they're swimming, trying to figure out how to get out, and suddenly their coins start glowing, and the Asian guy is the Black Ranger instead of, I think, most of the Yellow Rangers were like Asian before, so they avoided that. But he's like, he sees that he's got the black coin and it's glowing. He's like, I'm black, and then the Blue Ranger bro is like, no, you're not black. I'm black. But that was pretty much the only overt spoken reference to his race in the entire thing, and it made sense because of his one of his symptoms of autism is he takes things literally. It's established that, and he actually, by the end of the movie, he actually learns how to interpret humor and make jokes. And I'm sure that there are plenty of SJW blogs out there talking about how ableist that is. And honestly, as someone who isn't autistic, I don't know how accurate that is. I've known people in my life who are autistic. I guess you consider, I don't know what the terminology is, bros, but high functioning. And I've met some online, and honestly, I really couldn't tell. I mean, I don't know how to tell, really, and so I don't treat them any different than. But this entire movie could have just shoved that, in this day and age, could have just shoved their race and their, lesbianism into our face and made it a huge deal of each the white characters having to learn how to accept the people of color and everything, but they didn't. I mean, and that shocked me because this is something like the dialogue was corny a lot, but that's par for the course for Power Rangers and kids TV anyway. But they each had arcs, they all learned from each other, they all accepted each other without question. They listened to each other's problems, and none of their problems stemmed from their race or gender. They were genuine problems that anyone could have had. You could have had the Pink Ranger be a guy and him texting a picture, an unflattering picture of a girl, and and him being rejected from the popular guy thing, and it still would have made sense. The Blue Ranger could have been white, and it still would have made sense. The White Ranger, there was no white. The Red Ranger bro could have been black, and you could have totally, played roulette or musical chairs or whatever with all of their races and genders, and it applied the same character arcs, and it would have been the same. And I genuinely enjoyed that. Rita Repulsa was as over the top as I wanted. It was just not as comedic. Oh no, well, she was funny, but much more. She was just as funny as I remember Rita Repulsa being, but she was also actually genuinely sinister with what she did. And the broette who played her sounded like looked like she was having an absolute blast playing her. Seriously, my favorite scene with her was there's I think it was called the Zeo Crystal somewhere, and she needs it to activate her powers or something, and she's just the Rangers have their Zords and they're fighting this giant gold bro, and she's just walking down the street and there's some stray laser fire, and just kind of looks over, and just continually just leisurely walks on by. It's like, it's no big deal that giant pink lasers are flying at her or anything. But yeah, I think it could have been heavy-handed, preachy, totally SJWE, and awful. But it wasn't. And honestly, I would like to encourage all you bros listening to go and watch it and support a movie like that, because this is a movie that is targeted towards kids. It has a lot of almost cussing. I don't know what the rating was. It's probably PG or PG-13. It's probably PG-13, but since it is a Power Rangers movie, it is aimed at kids. And we need to support movies like this that are genuinely have actual relatable messages that are not completely tainted with SJW propaganda. We need movies that show that it's okay to relate to people with various differences as people and not as just people. And so I don't know if you might not like Power Rangers or anything, but apparently they've planned 3 or 4 or 5 more movies in the series. So I very much I genuinely want to encourage you, Rose, to go out and see it. Support this type of a movie and send feedback saying I like how you, and talk genuinely. Go and send feedback to the studio saying thank you for not making this preachy. Thank you for treating each character as an individual person, regardless of what differences they had, and not making that the main focus of the movie. Because if the SJW get their hands on it, it is going to get much more heavy-handed in the movies coming. I don't know if the second movie's in production already, but it wouldn't affect the second movie probably anyway. But the third movie, they've probably already started giving their feedback about it. So we need to give our feedback to movies like this to encourage studios to write real movies with genuine characters and not stereotypes that are not stereotypes, if you know what I mean. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, Rose. Thanks for listening. If you like this, check out my other videos. I'm also on Minds, Twitter, and Gab at I'm Terry Bull. So check me out there. I've also done a guest video for Wrath of Controversy and about doing similar character analysis with Final Fantasy 13. So I'll put a link if you like. This is something you like. You want more of it? You can check that out. I'll put a link in the description. So thanks so much for listening to me ramble and on, bros. Peace, love, Tauros.